good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining this discussion, which will be, I hope, very enlightening. And today's webinar was organized not by one non-profit organization, but by two. And hi, Julia, can you please tell us what SGAC does?
Hi, so my name is Julia. I'll be co-hosting today the webinar. Very excited to be here, and thank you very much for connecting. So the SGAC is the Space Generation Advisory Council, and it's the voice of the young professionals and students for the utilization of space and how we should develop space around the globe. It's a non-profit organization that works in support of the UN, of the United Nations. And thank you for being here today with us. Camille, will you like to say something about the WIA?
Yes, for my part, so I represent today Women in Aerospace Europe as board member in the local group in Toulouse. And Women in Aerospace is a network of active ambassadors of the aerospace industry, composed of women and men passionate about their jobs, engaged through events, training, mentoring, etc., for inclusiveness and mixity. Our motto is share, connect, and inspire. And if you want to know more about us, connect with us on social networks. I'd like now to welcome our panelists. And first, welcome Catherine. Can you please introduce yourself in a few words?
Yes, hello to everybody. So I'm delighted to participate to this event. So thanks to the organizers. So I'm Catherine Lambert. I have an inset engineering degree and a PhD in signal and image processing in aeronautics. And I have also a diploma devoted to supervise the research in France, and an MBA. And today, after 25 years inside CNES, I am the director of CERFACS. CERFACS is a research center devoted to high performance computing.
Great.
Thank you.
So, do you want to?
It was perfect, Catherine.
Now, Clementine, over to you. Could you please introduce yourself briefly as well?
Sure. So hello, everyone. It's super nice to see so many people connecting from so many different places. So I'm Clementine. I am lucky enough to work for SGAC full-time as the executive director, and I've been doing this for 3 years. And I'm currently based in Marseille, so I saw there was some people in Marseille as well here on the webinar, so it's really nice. And I look forward to the exchange today.
Thank you. Fantastic. Now, Bethany, could you also please introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining today. It's great to see such an international audience. My name is Bethany, and I work as a public communicator for the space industry. I'm currently working with the Hubble Space Telescope for the European Space Agency. So my job is to take the technical or scientific information and find creative ways to communicate that to the public to get them engaged and for them to better understand space activities. I also serve as the coordinator for outreach and communications at SGAC, and I look forward to speaking with you guys today.
Thank you. We look forward to.
And so last but not least, Helen, hi. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm really pleased to be with you today. So I am the head of sales for commercial and military unmanned aerial system services in Airbus. I'm currently based in Munich, Airbus Defence and Space Headquarters, and I manage a multinational team focused on developing the business of drones from a few kilos to several tons. During my career, I've been working during 10 years in SNES, and I joined Airbus 15 years ago, where I spent a lot of time developing Earth observation applications before joining the global department. So I am as well the happy mother of 3 children, and when I had free time, I'm really happy to be involved in volunteer-based organizations on gender diversity, such as Women in Aerospace.
And we are very happy to having you today. And before starting this discussion, we wish to make a tag cloud, a word cloud that we will share later. And for that, we need your tags and we need your words. So tell us in one word or few words what this topic make you think about, what it inspires you. And I'll start to launch the dynamic. So in the chatter, you just put an hashtag and whatever it makes you think about. So makes me think about women empowering. So if you want, if you're very, very inspired, you can put another one like diversity. And so we hope that you'll share your words, and we will show this at the end of the meeting, of the discussion. So let's start with the roundtable. First question is for you, Helen. You're graduated from an agronomy engineering school. The professional outlets are mainly in the agricultural or agri-food industries. Can you tell us what attracted you to the space sector? And can you share with us the stakes of one significant project you've been working on?
Yes, sure. So as an agronomy engineer, my feet are really on the ground, definitely. But I came to the space sector, and in particular to the Earth observation, as I discovered the incredible capacity of space technology to make a positive impact on Earth, and in agriculture to monitor what's going on in the field, but as well to predict the harvest. So that was the really beginning, and then from agriculture I moved to several different applications in maritime surveillance, defense, or mapping. So every day I continue to discover how innovation in space technology can make our lives safer and more sustainable, should it be in the military or the civilian sector. Related to inspiring projects, I have been working on plenty of great projects. One of the most exciting at the moment is the FIRE. It's a high altitude platform station of 75 kilos, flying in the stratosphere at 60,000 feet. Fully solar powered and able to keep station over an area for several months, bringing an unprecedented persistence, much more than drones, aircraft, or satellites. And depending on the payload, you can see, sense, and connect, and serve a wide range of applications. And among others, we aim at developing this platform to eliminate the digital divide and bring connectivity to more people and more places in the world.
Okay, sounds amazing. Catherine, you joined in 2018 the ESA's Advisory Committee for Earth Observation, which means that with the other members of the committee, you advise the European Space Agency on their future missions without betraying any secrets or confidential matters. What trends do you observe on Earth observation research, and more especially, how do you improve space data valorization?
Yes, so first, some words about this ACHIO, that is the Advisory Committee for Earth Observation. It is an advisory body to the ESA Director of Earth Observation Programs. That is the main topic of this ACHIO is to give some recommendation and to advise on a series of science-related activities and projects, including the formulation and updating of the medium and long-term Earth observation science strategy, and also the formulation of future Earth observation missions. And it is also important to give some recommendation about the contribution of ESA Earth observation missions to address major societal issues. And what is very interesting that this HEO advisory is composed of about 16 members and with 50% of women, so it's a very good score. And what is for instance, one topic of this advisory instance? So it is, we were invited last month to comment ESA's conceptual framework and intended actions for digital twin Earth, that is DTE initiative. So this is one of the 8 key actions of the European Commission for shaping Europe's digital future under the heading of an open, democratic and sustainable society. And this is a high mode of Earth that would improve Europe's environment prediction and crisis management capabilities. And for instance, inside the HEO, we encourage ESA for engaging in such a project and will propose some actions. And it is, for instance, it is very important to support the value chain of data interoperability and artificial intelligence for DTU, that is, for instance, data processing and also data storage and artificial intelligence methods.
Thank you. We turned off the slides because the connection was going not so great.
Yes,
so thank you, Julia.
That. I turned it off. So now I would like to ask Bethany. You work for ESA as a communications professional, so you are the Office of Information Office. And as a communications professional, what is the impact of words we use to talk about space, to communicate about space? For example, what's the impact of using the words manned versus crewed? And how do you communicate in your role at ESA and also when you're involved with the SGAC?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. As someone who is now working actively and trained in communications, I think it's an understatement to say that words mean everything, because as someone that's a public communicator, you have to consider not only that your words are correct, but they're also going to be interpreted in various different ways from different audiences. And this has to be considered from a strategic point of view. You have to consider first what your mission and the strategic values are and how that will be interpreted by your audience. So if we're using the Hubble Space Telescope, for example, if we're taking a press release or a video, we really want to make sure the language is accessible. It's easy to understand. I think there's an unfortunate stereotype about rocket science and that working in the space industry is really hard, and this can deter some people from wanting to work in it. And I think that's the part of the role of communicators, is to make that more accessible and to better communicate what it's actually like to work in space, what the technologies and sciences really are, so that they're better understood and valued by our audiences. Fortunately, the Hubble Space Telescope is a very well-known mission, so it's a pleasure to communicate as part of that project because we can focus on the science since the awareness is already there. But you bring up a great example of manned versus crewed, and we actually have a launch taking place in a few hours, depending on weather, that we're all looking forward to. And I really encourage everyone as they're speaking to make it common knowledge, common sense, to use the word crewed or human instead of man, because those that we can be speaking to may interpret this to mean that I can't go. A young girl who hears this means maybe I can't be an astronaut because I'm always hearing the word man. And that can be very discouraging for young people that we're trying to inspire, because they're like sponges and all of this information is what they're going to eat up. And I think that's something that we can all use day to day. It's an easy change. And I think it's something that we all have to be considerate of in our language that we use, because we're all advocating for space to be diverse and inclusive, but that also comes from us in the language that we use. And at SGAC, we are a very international organization. So when I'm coordinating outreach projects and communications at the organization, that is my #1 goal, is that we are reaching our international audience and that we can be inclusive in many different ways, because diversity includes not only gender, but I also consider nationality and age, and these are the types of things that we have to consider when we're using our different languages.
Thank you. I appreciate so much that you're highlighting the fact that we can make a change on a personal level. So thank you very much for your honesty. And that you touched SGAC, I have a question for Clementine. So as the executive director of the SGAC, you often represent the organization at all the numerous events and at gatherings, for example, the International Astronautical Congress and at the UN. And the UN has sustainable development goals, excuse me, which target minorities, they target women, and actually all of them aim to reduce inequalities. So these are tough subjects to tackle. And my question to you is, how do you succeed in doing that while working remotely? So how do you connect your volunteers when they rarely meet in person? And how do you keep the team involved and motivated?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for us, honestly, the whole situation right now, being working from home, working remotely, etc., didn't change much, because in any case at SGAC we always work remotely. So, I mean, sometimes people are part of a team, the same team for like many years, and they never saw each other. For me personally, I've been working for SGAC for 3 years, and there are many people that I never met in person, but we still managed to work together very well. So how we manage this, I mean, in different ways. Like, first part is to, you know, have regular follow-up, closely monitoring like what the teams are doing, etc., like you would do in a normal daily work life, but also organize activities to engage, right? So we started initiative like these webinars, and so far we have organized like more than 50 webinars. It welcomes all the time like around maybe 100 participants. So far we collected like people coming from 80 different nationalities, which is amazing. And like, this is the best way that you can actually reduce inequalities, right? Like, what's best than connecting just online, because you just don't have the barriers that prevent certain people to attend these conferences. For instance, you mentioned the IAC. I mean, this is great. This is a great conference, but sometimes it's expensive for people to come and attend. And what's best than an event online? So to reduce these inequalities, we also organize social activities online, for instance, a coffee hour or global team brainstorming meetings, etc., which really keep the team engaged. We have different platforms for collaboration. For instance, we use a lot like social media. We have great PR team. Bethany is here. Like, the social media engagement at SGAC is super proactive. We have like messages every day on every platforms to keep engaged with our network. And finally, I would say that the structure of SGAC itself also makes it engaging for the members, because we have representatives in the regions and the countries that are basically the relay of SGAC with their own community, which also allows like to work remotely and to coordinate the activities even if we don't see each other, basically.
Thank you. Thank you for the tips. I think we can all take tips for the online events to do with our companies and our teams.
Yes. Let's go back to Catherine. Please, you first obtained a PhD and then worked in the CNES Research Institute as a manager. You turned to be the head of department, and you are now the director of the CERFACS European Research Center. Aside from having a very impressive professional path, it is clear that you evolved in a very technical environment where men are largely represented. What are the main challenges you faced during your career?
Yes, thank you, Camille. My first experience of team management was indeed a bit complicated, because I was less than 40 years old, and I took charge of a new transversal department devoted to innovation and preparation of the future in CNES, the Space French Agency. And the strength of this department was based on the high level of expertise of its engineers. So I had to manage experienced engineers and experienced managers. And some of them, too, refused to come to this department when they learned of my appointment. 2 men. and it was a very special experience.
In
the end, it was a for me, because those who were then recruited were volunteers and helped me to develop the department, but it was not so easy at the beginning. And today at CERFACS, we are 20% women for about 140 people. And it's not very high, but it's a good score compared to the number of women in engineering schools, and more specifically in computer science, because it's about 12%. And it's difficult today to recruit young women with a PhD in computer science. And 12% of women in the digital profession, it's very low. It seems to be a problem of orientation. It could be a lack of knowledge of the professions. It could be also a problem of stereotypes. And following some surveys, it seems that inside this 12%, 45% of women leave due to a sexist atmosphere or little value. So it's another problem. So today, the difficulty I have is to find women in order to improve the diversity inside CERFACS.
Right.
Thank you for this honesty. Appreciate it very much. And actually, I have a question to Clementine regarding this a little bit. So while the rest of the sector is quite struggling to recruit more women and help them up the career ladder, here's SGAC with 50 to 58% of the executive committee and the event organization positions, which are held by women. And of course, you yourself are our top lady of today, and SGAC has only seen female executive directors so far. So my question is, how do you do that? And part of it is, do you believe that, for example, mentorship strategies are a way to help attract women and also help them stay in the force, in the sector?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So at SGAC, the main thing that you have to know is that we recruit volunteers. It's not an employee-based organization, but a volunteer-based organization. So when we recruit our volunteers, we don't have any type of like, quotas or any type of like preferred profile or anything like that. Like our goal is to basically provide as many opportunities as possible to as many people as possible, and to engage with everybody. So we would not like, of course, we have positions, limited number of positions, but our goal is really to engage with everyone. So meaning if I applied for like a volunteer position and I'm not selected, I'm always going to find another opportunities to apply to, and we will always like encourage you to engage with SGAC no matter what. So I don't want to say that it's coming naturally, but at least we don't do anything on our side in terms of like the choice of the candidate to arrive to that number. However, there's a tremendous effort that is done in terms of like the outreach and like how we communicate to our community about the opportunities at SGAC. It's very clear that we want to be, we really want to be inclusive. We want to provide the same opportunity for everyone to get involved. So we have scholarships, we have vacancies, we do events. We don't only do events like, following the main conferences. We bring the events to the regions, to the countries that don't have these opportunities normally. Because I mean, it's really nice to discuss like global space-related topic, but it's even more important to discuss local challenges and like regional challenges, which are certainly not the same everywhere. So events are really key. Like for SGAC, we go in the countries, we go in the regions, and we meet these people that are part of the SGAC network, and we offer them, opportunities and also a sense of belonging. Like you're part of this huge network around the world of friends. And people really wear it with pride, like they really realize that they are part of a family in a sense, and they feel encouraged and empowered to contribute. Also, everyone can be the host of an event, for instance. Everyone can bring a new partner. Everyone can, represent SGAC at a conference. There's no limits, which means if you really want to contribute, you can. And I think this is key, the way we empower the people, no matter like who they are, what's their background, where they're from, etc. And then I would say providing role models. So that's part of your second question, the importance of mentoring. I think it's really key, which is why at SGAC, first of all, we developed a mentoring program for this reason. But on the other side, we will always pay attention, like if we organize an event and we have to have speakers coming, we'll always pay attention to the diversity of the speakers that are coming. Because if you put yourself in the shoes of, let's say, a man or woman from like Indonesia or whatever, and they never see any speakers coming from Indonesia working in space, well, they're gonna think, okay, like nobody in Indonesia is really doing it, so I will never succeed, basically. So for us, it's very important to provide role models and like people that you can relate to. So indeed, I think mentoring is really key, and by bringing those role models, we create those connections, which really encourage people to then continue getting involved in space. So yeah, I would say mentoring is definitely important, and the empowerment part, and like giving trust in people, like that they can do it and that they can organize activities is very important.
Thank you. Definitely.
Okay. Mentoring is a key topic, and I cannot say otherwise, because we are in WIA launching a mentoring initiative for next year with 2 top-ranking engineering schools in Toulouse. And Catherine, Helen and you were among the founders of WIA in one part, and in other part you have also been the president of Ancent Engineering Schools Alumni Association. You have been involved in TVS Business School Alumni Association as well. From all those experiences, what are the main benefits from mentorship initiatives? And more widely, what did you learn from your commitment in those associations?
Yes, first some words about WIA Toulouse, because in 2014, we decided, that is some men and few men and women from Aerospace Valley, from TBS, from Airbus, from CNES, from Thales, and from IRT Saint-Exupéry, decided to create a WIA local group in Toulouse. And why? Because we were passionate about our profession and committed to promote gender diversity. And we agreed that gender diversity was a source of innovation and competitiveness for a company or for research organization. It was a very nice experience with our first event that brought together about 80 people at Cité de l'Espace. And like Camille said this just in the beginning, we had the 3 motto and 3 main objectives that were connect, share, and inspire. And it's very important because to connect, we wanted to set up a network of exchanges on diversity in the aerospace sector of Toulouse. Share, that is, we want to have a place to share our experiences and to generate opportunities for women. And inspire, that is a showcase in order to inspire vocations for the youngest and to promote women leadership. And the main word was there. So today I'm very happy because the WIA Toulouse is still very much alive, and you organize very nice events, and the mentoring initiative is a very good one initiative, and because it's a very good option to connect, to share, and to inspire. So thank you for this, Camille and the organizers of WIA Toulouse. And of course, I am participating to mentoring initiatives from Toulouse Business School, but also I am participating in a working group of the French Academy of Technology also, and with the same objectives. I am implied also in the association Femmes Ingénieurs, the French association Femmes Ingénieurs. And so mentoring is very important in order to have more women in our organization. So it's a very important thing.
We hope to have more women to recruit and to excel the number. And don't hesitate to ask questions on this chat, and we'll ask them to the panelists later.
Yes, I would like to continue on the mentorship line and talking a little bit more about mentorship. And Bethany, a question to you. So when we develop mentorship strategies, ideas often rely on breaking free from the influence of gender stereotypes, and often in communication we try to relate this idea. And such discussions usually focus around building up the confidence of women and girls to become as capable as men and boys. On the other hand, we rarely talk about how to deconstruct stereotypes in men and boys. And so we think that's why today many women, they feel empowered and they feel more confident, but they still sometimes face the stereotypes through the eyes of their male colleagues. So what do you think of that, of the other side of the coin of communicating and deconstructing stereotypes?
Absolutely. It's both a great and tough question, because that is the harsh reality I think that many of us can relate to. At least once a day, someone that I've never heard or spoken with before who sends me an email, they assume, and they start their email with "Dear Sir" or "Mr." because they assume of my title that I must be a man. So sometimes it requires patience on my side, but then, like you said, it's hard and challenging to still feel motivated and empowered when we're dealing with these stereotypes all the time. So I think both sides of these coins need to go together. Firstly, supporting and encouraging women, and if we're talking about direct solutions, I've seen some things come up in the chat. One recommendation I make for a large organization is twofold. First is to remove the first name of new applicants in the efforts of hiring, to remove any possibility of bias so that they're only being considered for their CV, but also direct outreach for women, because we're also struggling to have equal men and women that are applying for these roles. So I think it's important that there's targeted outreach so that we are improving the numbers of female applicants that are coming in. But there's also, importance from both sides. I think we need better improvement from males in terms of being aware of what biases they might have. Some might not be aware that they are exhibiting these stereotypes, or so I think that's one side, but we also need to be encouraging and empowering women, but these can also go together. I don't think they need to necessarily be separated. I think this mentorship and this engagement and this evolved form of thinking need to go hand in hand. So it's a continued process, it's a continued challenge, but these are things that can be improved both industry-wide in terms of our communication and our language, our targeted outreach efforts, but within organizations as well. I think it's important to look at some important statistics in terms of the applications that come in, as well as those that are eventually hired, and making sure that we can improve and really support both the males and the females to be more diverse in their thinking and their actions.
Thank you very much. And we're all taking notes, I hope, and thank you for the tips and to everyone.
Speaking of stereotypes and confidence and means to struggle against those stereotypes, Helen, within Airbus Group, I'm aware that diversity representatives are appointed, as we are in touch with one of them within WIA Toulouse. But in concrete examples, what initiatives are being implemented within the company, and in which maybe, by the way, you may have been involved yourself?
Yes, Airbus is a big company. So how can you make really a change on diversity is a big question. So 10 years ago, Airbus launched a program on diversity, dealing with many forms of diversity, disabilities, age, cultural as well, and of course gender. And they have been developing really a sound program for women leadership and to harness the power of all women. So it was like a top-down approach, because there was a strong willingness And the executive committee of Airbus Group really committed to improve the diversity. And I think that they did something very well, which had a great impact. At the beginning, they trained all the managers, all the executives. They had a half-day training on gender diversity. And you know, now we talk a lot about it. 10 years ago, it was still a topic which was not at the top priority of the companies, but it really came from a top-down approach. And they also developed a lot of training for women leadership, really dedicated, not to leadership in general, but really for women. And this was really measured, and a lot of regular talks were happening at the executive level. But of course, it's not enough. It's what is really happening on the ground. And there was already in Airbus some local groups of women advocating the diversity. But thanks to this corporate initiative, we have been able to join together the local groups and to build some bridges between all the countries and the sites. So, for example, in Toulouse, a few years before they had this initiative, a group was existing. So this group joined the Balance for Business initiative, so-called in Airbus. And I think it really reinforced our actions and connected us to other countries and other sites to organize an action and to work in network. So we were much more supported by the management as well, and we could organize more events and supported by the committee, the executive committee in each site. So we organize mentoring, role models testimonies, marketplaces, and we were working in Toulouse as well with other gender diversity groups in the aerospace industry. So I think to make a real difference, you need, as a big and great company like Airbus, you really need both streams, an engagement at the local level, but as well strongly supported by the manager. There is another thing that they have implemented. You know, we are measuring our performance with KPI, key performance indicators, and of course, we now have quotas in Airbus with respect to the recruiting. So there is a lot of debate. Should we have quota or not? I think maybe 10 years ago, I would have said that I was not in favor of it, but like it or not, we need it to make a change. Today, as head of sales of the unmanned aerial systems, I can tell you that I have this role because of these KPIs as well. And maybe a short anecdote. When I had this role 1.5 years ago, my boss introduced me during the first conference of sales and marketing at the beginning of the year, and he was presenting his board. I was part of it, the only woman among 12 men. And so he said, this is Helen, she's a great leader, and I'm happy to have Helen in my team. And in addition, I have completed my KPI in gender diversity. So it was a kind of joke, and I know him, and I like his sense of humor. But you know, in front of room of 300 people, including women, after that I had a lot of remarks. Oh, Hélène, that's not nice what your boss said, because somehow it could look like you're there because of the KPI. But honestly, I think, of course, I know why I have this role today, and we need to accept these quotas and don't be, don't be shy. And if you have a role, it's because you deserve this role. So now I really think a lot remains to do. And the situation is very diverse in Airbus, from one side to the other, with respect to gender diversity. But there is a strong willingness, and the situation will improve if we are active on the ground and at all levels.
Thank you very much for the anecdote, which I hope we will see less and less of that happening. But the first step is actually to share and to attract attention of people so that we get it in our heads. So thank you very much for the honesty. And bouncing off of embracing diversity on a corporate level, I would like to ask Clementine. So when you oversee events happening all over the world and at least 40 events per year, and in your 3 years of being the head of SGAC, you must have seen diversity in all its colors and all the shapes that it can come in. So could you tell us what you have learned about diversity thanks to this experience? Maybe one particular moment that you would like to share with us as well, and maybe also more generally, what benefits come from a diverse team?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, indeed, after all these events and all the people that are based at SGAC, you get to talk to people from really all over the world, all types of background, etc. The first thing I want to say is that we all make mistakes sometimes. Like we all, for instance, not always choose the best word to describe something, or not always see the things through the best angle, etc. And that's why you really need organizations or initiatives like WIA or like Our Giant Leap, like to really teach people how to make it change, basically, because we're not expert in that, and it's always good to get a little reminder on what type of word you need to use, what you can do to create positive change, etc. And the second thing is that for me, I really learned that diversity is a real chance, and it can only bring a positive to a team. But you also need some skills to adapt to this multicultural environment. At least for me, in my daily work, I work with people from really everywhere, all types of background, etc. You need to have some curiosity. You really need to have a desire to learn about the people you work with, where they come from, where they grew up, etc. What type of environment, to really be able to work with them at its best. You need also a little bit of patience and respect, because people coming from different places or with different backgrounds have different way of working, of thinking, and it doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It's just different. So you really need to respect that. And also, forming relationship, like especially at SGAC, like if I would not really want to form relationship with the volunteers, I don't think that it would work as good as it works now, because I really take the time to get to know the people that I work with, and I'm not just like managing 15,000 member organizations like that. And then and yeah, it's about how to get the best out of the people you work with, like how to assemble the best skills in the same team or in the same room, basically, no matter if they are men, women, coming from different countries or not coming from space sector or anything like that. And about moments that inspired me, I would say there are tons of them, but one of them in particular I met a few years ago through an event at the United Nations. That was a woman from Bhutan who wanted to come and attend an event at the UN, and she asked SGAC if we could support her application, which we did. And I met her in person, and first of all, that was the first time that I was meeting someone from Bhutan. It's not every day that you can meet someone from this country. But on top of things, she was really, I don't know, really enthusiastic, super new to all the space industry. She wanted to become an astronaut and inspire young girls. And she wasn't scared at all. Like, she literally wrote a letter to the government of her country to say that she wanted to organize a space camp in Bhutan, and she managed. So now there's a space camp in Bhutan for young girls to learn about space, which is amazing. There was other instances of people coming to an event for the first time, taking the plane. In particular, our point of contact for Nigeria, he took the plane for the first time, came to Bremen for the IAC. At the end, got to present his entire work in his traditional uniform in front of the entire crowd of Lockheed Martin, NASA, ESA, etc. And they all came to him afterwards, telling him it's amazing what he's doing in Nigeria, etc. So these are really amazing stories that happen because organizations like SGAC exist, where you can provide these opportunities to the members. And I would say the benefits is really the diversity of opinion and the balance of opinion. Also, it doesn't work if you work only with people like yourself, right? I don't think that you can succeed as much as if you work with people with different opinions. And for SGAC also, it's very important because if we do activities, the more diverse the group is, the more representative of SGAC it is. So if we work, for instance, on like a policy paper or a white paper, etc., the more diverse is the team that is working on that project, the more representative it is of the organization itself. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's a very interesting feedback. And Helen, I want yours too. You began in space services industry in a sales and marketing function where women represent a significant part of the workforce. And then you shifted to engineering environment where it's not often that a woman climbs the management ladder. So you've been through many situations. What would be your main tips for success to all the people who watch this webinar?
Yes, it's true that I have a really multidisciplinary career path, and I had to permanently learn, progress, adapt. And this is what is really motivating me. So I always need to discover a new area, a new working environment. So I think the curiosity is really something important. And in the same time, I have always been building on what I learned from the former job and the networking I've built as well in my former role. So I think you always have something to bring, even if you move from one function to another. You can always reuse something. And for example, when I moved from sales and marketing function to operations and an engineering environment, and I led at one time an architect system team. What I brought to them, of course, was my leadership skill, but as well I was able to grow the customer view, which was really appreciated from them. So I have two tips for you today. The first one is to develop your self-confidence in the new role. So you need to get the knowledge that you do not have from your team first. And they don't expect from you to know everything, but to give their guidance, to translate the company's strategic objectives into concrete objectives and action for them, and to make their role successful. I would also recommend that you don't enter too early in the operational role. Take your time to learn, map the stakeholders, get in contact with them as early as possible, because after, you're in the run and maybe you don't take this time. So it's really important that you take time to understand what is at stake, and as well you build your network for your future job. And it's also important to request feedback, and it is the best way to progress, and you should not hesitate to request feedback even at the beginning of the new role. The second tip is that delivering will not be enough. You need to show your results and to promote yourself. This is an area where what I have seen, and it's as well my case, we don't promote ourselves enough. And there is a tip I learned during one of this women leadership training, is that we really have a tendency to use we when we talk about our results. And we should say as much as possible I rather than we. So it's really important to use the I. Many men know the sticks better than us. So I think it is as well important to choose your boss. And you should choose your boss as well for his or her ability and willingness to develop you and to take care of your career. And your boss should always be your #1 sponsor. Mentoring is great, but you need sponsorship as well. And finally, I think you need to be who you are and do not make any concession on your values. For me, authenticity and humility are very important values, and I think it makes great leaders. And finally, I think I have really progressed in my career because my manager trusted me. But somehow they forced me several times as well to take leadership positions I thought I would not have been able to be successful in. So don't lose time, don't be afraid to fail. You always learn something, and don't ask yourself too many questions. Simply there to be who you are and be proud of what you do and who you are.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for those tips. We take all of them.
Yes, I managed to take some hashtags so that we keep these tips in the chat. Lovely. Thank you very much. And Bethany, now I have a question to you to actually conclude a little bit and look into the future. So in November 2019, you coordinated the Astronomy Day in School initiative, which engaged over 110,000 students from 70 countries worldwide. And I'm super impressed. Congratulations on that. And we can take a note that younger children tend to fearlessly say, I want to be an astronaut, regardless of gender. So from your experience and as the first scientist astronaut candidate from Atlantic Canada, what advice can you give us all in reaching out to the next space generation to build a more diverse space sector for tomorrow?
Absolutely. I think shaping this diverse and inclusive environment starts from a young age. And that's what the vision and goal for this Astronomy Day in Schools initiative came from. And we had students, like you said, in over 70 countries around the world. So we brought in astronomers, broader scientists, as well as communicators to come into their local schools, build relationships with these schools to serve as not only an educator about the role of astronomy and how it can be used for education, development, diplomacy, but also to serve as role models, an accessible example. I grew up in a rural region of Canada, and although a developed country, unfortunately, where I was born and raised, there is no means to work or study space-related disciplines. So I had to leave where I came from in order to do that. And I really wanted to bring that back home since, so now that I've been doing a lot of training in various disciplines for my commercial suborbital flight, which will take place in a few years, I really taken time to make sure that the outreach that I do is focused at home. And I prioritized underserved regions as well as Native communities because I really want to make as much of the impact as possible. And I think this sense of diversity and inclusion can really be done well in a school environment. Because they have the teacher network there that is looking for resources. They're looking for means to educate their children, but this is where we can also foster this sense of inclusion and encouraging them to do what it is they want to do. I started telling my classmates from a young age that I wanted to be an astronaut, and it was dismissed quite a lot, and I kept it to myself for many years that this is what I wanted to do. And now that it's come out and people in my community know that I'll be taking this space flight within a few years, it's been really encouraging to see how people have been supporting me. But it also makes me think that I want other children to be confident when they say that there's a role that they want to do, whether it's space related or not. I think we want to encourage and foster that sense of confidence in the role it is that they want to achieve. And I think, yeah, the point I want to drive home is that the school and classroom environment is really effective for that. And that's a place where we can be teaching not only space related things, but breaking down the stereotypes of gender and encouraging more sense of inclusion and diversity from a young age, which in years to come, that's what will impact and be the voice of the next generation for the space sector. So I think that's what's important to consider, is how we can foster the next that come after us and how it can be better and improved for them.
Thank you. I hope we take this message home really, and hopefully you'll manage to inspire the next generation. So speaking of inspiration, we are now ready to show you the results of our associations. So we'd like to ask, actually, Bethany, since you're the last speaker, could you please comment, and then the rest of you, could you just freely comment on the both collection of words? Is it as you expected, or would you like to add something? Just feel free to bounce off this beautiful collection of words. So
yeah,
Bethany.
absolutely. Well, first of all, I think we've covered geographic diversity, which is amazing. I'm glad that we had so many people from around the world that tuned in for this. But in terms of the key words, I love that both collaboration and passion are the ones that stand out, because I think that means that we have, I mean, even those of us that joined today, there's a clear sense of motivation, encouragement, and community. And I think collaboration and passion are great representative words for that. So I think that's a really feel-good feeling to have as we leave this webinar today and try to have these sense of motivation and need for change moving forward. We can see that there's a passion for it, but we're also collaborative and wanting to work together. So I love that those are at the forefront in the center.
Beautiful.
Anyone wants to add something? Because there are lots of very significant words sharing here. Collaboration and passion comes very highlighted. So that's a good picture, a very good cloud. I'll keep it for myself. But does anyone wants to add something? No, words less, voice less. All right, thank you. It's also very interesting to see where you come from. Lots of France, but lots of people coming from otherwise Brazil, Canada, England. That's very nice. Thank you. I'll stop sharing the screen, Julia. It's a
Yes, thank you. We're now ready to start the Q&A. And thank you all for your questions. Please.
Is it just for me that you are all paused?
For me, it's fine.
Okay, maybe because I was sharing my screen then. All right, so first question. We were talking about very pragmatic action, what we can do. So there's a question from Alina, which asks, what is one thing a person can do to make a positive impact on gender equality in their organization? So is there anything that you can do in your own organization, whoever you are, whatever you do for a living? And it's quite linked to a question from Florian. So I'll ask them together. Do you have specific advices for men that want to advance gender equality in their workplace? And is anyone inspired to answer them?
Maybe
yes, power. Yes. Oh, Helen, vas-y.
Okay, what I want to share with you is related to the recruitment. When you see a job application, I think if you're a woman, you will really check that you have 80% of the skills to apply for the job, whereas men, statistics are quite known. With 60% of the skills, they will apply. So what I'm doing when I'm recruiting someone is that I proactively approach women to apply to this job. And this really pays. I mean, you look around you, and as well through the women network that we have in Airbus, we are really able to attract more women to apply to job applications. And this is as well an advice that I give to the other managers, because they told me, "Oh, Helen, but you recruit more women. How you do this, etc." And I tell them, guys, if you don't go outside of your office and if you don't look for it and proactively connect with those women, they will not come to you. So I think it's really important that we are all more aware that it will not, maybe less, it will come less naturally, but if we are proactive, it will as well increase the number of women in engineering jobs or whatever for jobs in the aerospace industry.
All right. Does anyone want to add something? Thank you, Helen, for your answer.
Thank you very much. I think we have a question that could rebound of this. Actually, it's for as a manager already. We have a question from Florian as well. So as a manager, I will have to assume that women in my future teams are disadvantaged by the environment, which may be more friendly to men, and therefore that taken. Wait, sorry. I will recommend restart. I will have to assume that women in my teams are disadvantaged by the environment, more friendly to men that don't have to prove themselves all the time, or are not required to advance the cause of their working, and therefore is this taken into account in the management practices, or on the contrary, that we treat everybody equal and sort of not take into account on the management level? I think, Clementine, you could answer this as a manager of such a huge organization and working worldwide.
Yep. I think I want to take that question, Florian. I mean, first of all, I think that the important part is really to make no assumption, because basically, make no assumption about like the challenges or like the role, etc., that women in your team may want to take. Also, as a manager, you're the one that set the environment, right? So you are the one in charge of really basically making this environment free of stereotype, basically. And the third thing I want to say is that if we start thinking like this and like make differences in the way we manage people, me personally, if I made it to the team, it means that I have the skills to work in this team, that I can bring something positive, etc. And I don't think I'd like to be treated differently because of this, or because I'm a woman or anything like that. Like if I made it to the team, I want to contribute somehow. And yes, it's true that sometimes women may have less confidence in themselves, or may think that they will not really succeed, or they will be afraid, for instance, of like asking anything to their management, or take more time to do so, etc. But it would be your role as the manager to act on the environment, not treat them differently, but treat the entire environment differently and adapt it so that you don't have to treat differently these people, the women that are on your team. So yeah, that would be my advice to you if you had to manage a team with women in the team.
Thank you.
Great. We have a self-confidence question here from Yukta, who asks, I feel that the men in my field are more smart and have more knowledge than me. Did you ever feel the same way, and what did you do in that case? So that's a very, very interesting question. I guess that any one of us ever asked herself this question. Who wants to answer? Maybe Catherine, you are in very technical field. What's your point of view?
For me, it's only a feeling, and perhaps not a right feeling. And so you have to be more confident, and you have to dare to new position. And so it's only a feeling, and that's the problem. Such a question is a problem, because we don't have to think that we are different from others and from men.
It is clear that fewer men ask themselves this question. It's usually more women who asks those questions, and it's very, very right, Catherine, to say that's mostly a feeling. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe something to add on that point is that you know, if you are in this class again, it means that you really want to study whatever topic is being taught in this class, and you're here for a reason again. And I don't think that you know, the men in your class are asking themselves this question. I think you're asking yourself this question, but you know, you should not. And also, I mean, to provide an example is a bit different. Like for me, I come from a total non-space background. I did marketing at school. I had no intention to like work in the space industry. I ended up here a little bit by chance. At the beginning, when I was like running in conference, I was really feeling like kind of like the imposter syndrome. You know, I was really wondering what am I doing here? Because I mean, all these people who know very well the space sector, who are so knowledgeable, and me, I'm here and I know nothing, and I don't know how I will contribute. But at the end of the day, like I think there is also, you know, like something that you can contribute. Everybody can contribute something positive. It's just a matter of like believing in what you can contribute and like sharing this with people, you know, and then you will see that there is a place for everyone, especially in space. That's for sure.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you.
And
I would like
I
to...
have another, sorry.
I
have another comment related to self-confidence. I think if you doubt, you can ask or call a friend, because sometimes just you reflect from you on yourself, but ask people around you, and you will see that maybe this is a very different picture. So usually, I think it helps a lot. And as well, I had another idea, but I lost it. Sorry. Okay, I'll come back.
Sure, we'll come back. Don't hesitate.
On that point of self-confidence, I think a lot of that comes from your support network too, and that ties into mentorship, because I'm a strong advocate that there's different types of mentors. I have mentors that I look up to professionally who have been my bosses currently or in the past. I have a group of supportive women that are also either A, training to go to space, or B, that are also communicators, or also men that I've found that are really strong advocates for diversity. And I think there's different types of mentorships and peer support networks that can help foster that sense of confidence when we do have that feeling that lingers of if I'm good enough, if I have my place. And I think that sentiment of not being alone or being encouraged is really important. So surrounding yourself with people who feel the same way as you, that are encouraging, is incrementally important. And it grows and grows the more that you develop in your career. So I think it's also important to consider the people that have supported you, and so that you support them as well. It's a big family. Of course, like we said, the SGAC family is large and it's worldwide. It's always important to note those that have been particularly supportive of you, and for you to pass that on and to be supportive of others. And I think that support network can really help that sentiment of confidence both ways.
Definitely, thank you. I hope this mutual support actually will make it better in the long term or in some term, but it's true what you're talking about. I really feel it. It's great. Thank you. I would like to bring us to the maybe reality of right today, talking a little bit about dealing with COVID among other things, but among other crises. So we got a question from Suzanne, who says, historically, during tough times, minorities suffer most in terms of being laid off or losing career development. And actually, I add on my own that I've read an article that in astronomy, for example, women produce much less fewer papers today because they have to deal with home and children, COVID. So how do you plan to keep the momentum of diversity and inclusiveness drive during and after the COVID? If anybody wants to, or maybe to talk a little bit about the impact of the situation on women, and how can we actually, well, diminish, if we may, this impact on women particularly?
If I might, I think the first thing that we've noticed is that we can now work online, or there are means for us to connect that maybe we weren't using as often before. And I think that presents an opportunity moving forward. I think more organizations will be encouraging of using virtual means to connect, and I hope that means that this will foster a greater means of communication and outreach with said groups that need to be better targeted for this inclusion. Because before, if we were working more so in physical spaces, I think now we've shown and demonstrated that work can continue to a certain degree in an online environment and online platforms. And I think that's important for fostering a sense of community, but also dialogue. I think we have new ways of communicating with people, which is one thing I hope will really continue after this.
And I think as well that, sorry,
Go ahead.
during COVID, you know, when you had your children at home and you had to work from home with your husband, there was no choices. Both of them was taking care of the children, of the school, and of course of the cleaning of the house, because both of them had to work. So what I saw around me is really that the women and men have been able to organize themselves, and I don't know if it was a 50-50 share, but all of them, you know, were really dealing morning or afternoon taking care of the children. But I think they had no choice in this terrible crisis. I'm not sure it will make it will continue like this, but at least I hope that it made a change at their local level.
Yeah, actually, that's a little bit similar, but like during COVID, like people started working, they had more flexibility in their schedule and in their work environment. And I think it's something that to take away from that is that to support, you know, a more flexible work environment. So, as you said, like if you have to, you know, if you have parental obligation, both for men and women, actually, it's interesting to have access to a more flexible work schedule and work environment. I think this is something that should be supported because that can basically eliminate barriers for people who come to work, to be able to have that flexibility and be able to work whenever it's possible for them to work during the day, etc. So I think it's very important, like lessons learned from COVID. I don't think that that flexibility has a negative impact on like the work and let's say the efficiency at work or like that type of things. I think it's even an advantage that should be maintained.
All right. To escape a few minutes from those very current issues, there's a question here from Mylis, who asks what led each member of the panel to the space sector, and she wonders, did you have a role model when you were younger, or she asked, did you watch a lot of sci-fi movies or receive strong family support? So where does this come from to go to the space sector? When did it start and from what? Anybody who has some very specific experience to share, or maybe it was from school or from whatever?
Well, growing up for me, I couldn't study or work in space directly from where I came from, but from a young age, I knew I loved space. I used to save the empty space in my notebooks in school where there's a margin at the top where you're supposed to write the date. I used to write at the end of the day or the week what topics interested me most. And at the end of the year, every year looking back, I saw that all of those topics could be connected by space. Those were the ones that drew my interest the most. And then by accident saw a shuttle launch in 2007. And I think that's what made me go, wow, there is nothing that captures my attention and passion and motivation quite like seeing something like this. And I have defined it in me a way to work, something having to do with space. I did not know what. I went on to university, and at first I was studying rocks, earth science, geology, moved a little bit into animals and how humans interact with animals in national parks, which was my undergrad thesis, which of course nothing to do with space, but it helped me learn more about the Earth to take that on to space studies for my master's. And I still didn't know what it was I wanted to do within space. It's a blessing of the space sector that there's so many topics that are encompassed within it because it's very multidisciplinary. But I found my love for communicating space because I think it's unlike any other discipline, but it was important for me that others share that same understanding of the value of space technology. So I wanted to find a way to communicate that. And I saw that someone else has asked, you know, comfortable with promoting yourself. And I think that comes with the communicator. That was challenging in the beginning. I hated putting myself out there or being an advocate or someone that would speak for certain projects, certain missions, or myself. And that's something I think I'm still working on. So when you say, how did you get into space? I think I'm still finding it. And I think it's still evolving, which is both special and fun and exciting.
Great,
it was a
thank you.
question to all panelists, so just jump in. What attracted you to space? Did you have role models or sci-fi movies you watched or family support?
I can take that question. I mean, for me, as I said earlier, I was out of complete luck. I ended up doing my studies in the United States. I had to find trainee to do, and I did my trainee at Arianespace, but it was for marketing and event training. And this is really what attracted me, like to work for space, because I realized that I can contribute somehow to the space sector, even though it's for other disciplines than like too technical ones or engineering or anything like this, which I didn't know before. And so what attracted me to continue working in space is the community, because it's such an amazing community of people that are really passionate about what they're doing, and everybody know each other. It's like this little family. You bump at each other all the time at events, etc. So for me, this was something that I really liked about the industry, and the fact that there is a more and more it's an understanding that people coming from different backgrounds can contribute to this sector, especially like if you think about it, if we have to go to like the moon or to Mars, or if we have to live on the moon, for instance, there will be a need for different disciplines to be represented, which is, I think, the whole potential of the space sector, and this is really what attracted me the most.
All right.
So, well, I would like to also touch on the communication and outreach again. So we have a question from Priyanka. I read it. I keep getting the same remark when I do outreach about women in STEM or space. Why focus only on women? Why not talk about diversity in the global sense? So why are you excluding the other marginal groups? So do you have comments on that? And maybe Bethany, we can start with you as you're the communications professional here.
So I think, first of all, I think when the term diversity is used, there's almost a direct assumption, or that's the first word that comes to mind, might be diversity in gender, because I think that's one that's really being given a push that we're really trying to encourage. But I think part of that is using the word diversity in general, because you don't necessarily have to point out which particular aspect of diversity, but we should be considering all of them in all works that we do. And that takes considerable effort and consideration all the time. Before a big product goes out, I really sit back, I share it with several people, and I have to think about diversity from every different point of view to make sure that it's covered. And this does take a specific effort and consideration to do. But I don't think it's something that people should be critical of, because if you're considering diversity at all, that's an important step. But I think it's important for all of us to consider that diversity is not just gender, and it has to be considered in the many aspects of that. Like Clementine said, you benefit the most from your organization and the work that you do if it's representative of people as a whole, and that can only be done if all aspects of diversity are considered.
Yes, perhaps I agree with this, and for me it's very important. For instance, for CERFACS, for the research center, it's very important to have both diverse expertise. That is, we need to have mathematicians, we have to have computer engineers, we need to have data scientists, but we need also to have different nationalities. We have we need to have different backgrounds. That is not only people from engineering schools, but also from French or European universities. And we need also to have women and men. So it's very important to have the all diversity.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's to conclude the last question from Barbara. So that's a challenging question to all of you. What do the panelists see as the greatest challenge in 2, 5, 10 years perspective in space industry as well as society as a whole connected to it? So yeah, what are those perspectives from your points of view? And it's addressed to all of you, so we are very curious to know what you think about that. I said it was a challenging, tricky one.
Yes, but for me, the next challenge will be the link between space sector and digital sector, because the digital sector is developing strongly, and we have to work with this sector in order to develop also space sector. And it could be a very nice opportunity because the digital sector offers well-paid opportunities, and we need that diversity contributes to economic performance. So for me, this link between space sector and digital sector.
Cool. It is a challenge, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would say in terms of the space sector, like how we can more like expand our work to like non-space actors, because basically we really need to, like, us in the space community, like there's no need to convince each other on the benefit of using space for anything related to, like, you know, the sustainable development goals, etc. But like the others outside the space sector, they don't necessarily know that. And also, if we really want to see a change, there's so many like aspect of the, for instance, disaster management or like climate change, etc. that depends on space. And if we really want to get support for industry to solve these challenges, we need to convince the governments. And there's no way we can really convince the governments if the outside of the space sector is not aware of all these benefits. Because if we all come as a whole with like in mind the benefits of using space, this will be much more convincing to the people who are supposed to give us support. So I would say like how we can connect space more with non-space actor. And for this, I mean, diversity is again an asset, because we all come from different places. And, you know, if the space sector is more inclusive, there is more chance that we manage to have a bigger reach with our activities in the world, and indeed get more support for that.
I would say that I completely agree with Catherine and Clementine. First, it's about innovation and how we can really get the best from all the digitalization, but as well the incredible new technology that you can use in space, but as well in other domains. And the second one is really to make our life on Earth more sustainable. As you said, Clementine, well, space is our world, we live with it, but we really have to show and how it is important that without space there is no telecommunication, there is no forecast, no weather forecast, and I think yes, it will become a challenge even post COVID-19. You know that we have midterm, short term, but as well midterm, very strong effect on the economy. And we really have to demonstrate how space is key for our future.
Yeah,
I think they covered it. I mean, I'm fully in agreement, and I think the only thing I'll add is not only, I mean, I want to see an improvement in connections with non-space actors, but also non-direct space nations. There's a lot that I want to see better improvement in facilitating the development of infrastructure and projects for regions that haven't had the means of connecting directly to space yet. So this is, I mean, the type of projects like providing a telescope to a community for the first time for people who have never seen the night sky, or facilitating means of developing and building a CubeSat in these nations and communities that have never had the means to do so before. I want to find an improvement of really getting that infrastructure and hands-on experience to these countries that haven't had a means to do so yet. And I want to see that happen quicker and better, because I think, as we all said here today, that innovation is moving quick, but we want it to be diverse, and I want everyone to share in the love that we have for space.
Great. What a great way to end it on.
Yes.
So super.
This was the last question, unfortunately. I know there are more, but time's up. So just so you know, this webinar was recorded, so you can watch it again later or share it with all your network. Thank you again for joining this panel discussion organized by Women in Aerospace and Space Generation Advisory Council. Your questions were all very constructive and meaningful. Don't hesitate for the last questions to connect with all of us if you want to discuss more about diversity and space industry. And Julia, I'll leave you the last word. You had something to share.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say it's so hard to let you go. Thank you, this fantastic panel. Thank you for your honesty and all the answers, and thank you for all the questions. So I would propose that we kept a copy of all the questions, so we would love to distribute it to the speakers, and then no promises made today, but it's also good to keep the questions in mind for later times you're going to participate at other events, or maybe we could have a compilation of answers online. Let's see, but no promises today, but we keep the questions, so thank you very much. And what I would like to share with you is the fact that, well, this is not the end of these kind of discussions. And as you see, hopefully my screen works today. So Our Giant Leap is a new initiative of SGAC. Myself, and there are many representatives in this chat today with me who are working on this, and Our Giant Leap aims to promote diversity, and the first goal is to actually make the female presence in the aerospace sector stronger. And we have lots of ideas. We organize lots of things online and offline, so face-to-face. And this is what is going to be our kickoff event. So first face-to-face event that's going to be held in Toulouse in September 26th. Hopefully the COVID situation will allow it. So stay tuned, connect to us, find us on the social networks, and come to the event, participate in our online events as well, because we try to embrace diversity in all its colors through the SGAC network. And I thank you very much for this.
All right. So one last big thank you to Helen, Clementine, Catherine, Bethany for being there and discussing today. I hope we'll have this opportunity again soon. And I wish everybody a very, very good day.
My pleasure. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.